We are ready. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Journal Star Sportswriters podcast. I am Kirk Wessler. Today with me in the studio is Wes Hewitt, our assistant sports editor of the Journal Star. Also, Stan Morris and Aaron Ferguson, who cover high schools for us. And we are specifically talking about high school football, which is starting up this week. It's kickoff time. That's it. Pat that helmet there, man. That we have here, for those of you that don't have the visual, we have here a football helmet with a PJStar.com logo on it that we put together. We got the helmet. God, where did we get the helmet?
Metamora, I believe.
That thing on?
Yeah, we stole a helmet from Metamora.
I think they gave us a couple old helmets years ago, and then Ben Diggle,
20 years ago.
Ben Diggle, a former Journal Star sports reporter, now
Fits perfect.
is
He
painted them up.
Yeah,
the cool
he painted it
stripes on
for
them,
us, and then
I
we
put the
slapped
logos on. Yep.
Yeah. Wes slapped the logo on it, and it has become a prop for us and a decorative element in our sports department for going on 2 decades now.
Yeah.
So, and it even fits Aaron Ferguson's big head, so we're proud of this.
Sign me up, Coach. I'm ready.
All right. So
Taking some shots, it looks like.
Concussion
here we go.
protocol immediately.
We got opening night, Friday night, August 24th. And we're going to talk about, not so much about this Friday, because opening night, nobody ever knows what the heck is going to happen. We're going to take a look at the season a little bit. Aaron covers the big schools in the area. Stan covers the small schools. We're coming off a year when we had nobody win a state championship, but we had teams in the state championship game, and which is not unusual for the Peoria area. So what are our chances of having that happen again? Or a team, do we have a state championship caliber team, either bigs or smalls, guys? Silence.
I would say,
Probably start with Stan.
the best shot I think that we have as far as the small schools go would be Princeville. Princeville's a team that went to the quarterfinals last year. They returned 95% of their offense, I believe. They've got 8 guys coming back from the offensive side of the ball. They've got just some dynamic offense, really, and defense too. That they need to find. They lost 3 linebackers, which is big, but they have a JV team that was unbeaten last year, and so they would be if you say what small school would have a chance to go, and they're 1A, Princeville would be the one I would.
And when you say they've got a dynamic offense, I mean, they don't pass a lot.
They don't pass
They've just
a lot.
got a
No,
lot of guys they can hand off to and pitch to and run all over.
They've got 3 guys that have been
dynamic.
there. Jack Arnett is another one, running back that's been a 3-year starter. And Justin Jansen's another running back. And I've got a kid that saw sometime, that ran for 1,400 yards in the JV. So, and he saw sometime varsity too. So yeah, they throw. They used to only throw like 2 or 3 times maybe a game, but they throw a little bit more. And Matthew Butterfield is their 2-year starting quarterback. He's threw a little bit more last year, and maybe he'll throw it a little bit more this year too.
So, Snappy, I'm going to test your math here. How many thousand yards rushing do they have returning?
Oh,
We can be approximate if you need to.
Well, I think they averaged about 300 yards a game last year, just short of 300 yards a game. So so we're talking
out of 3,500 yards, by 3,500 to 4,000 yards by the time you get to the quarterfinals, right?
Yeah, they're probably 3,000 of those yards or more than that coming back.
Good.
I mean, Sneddon himself was over 1,500 yards, somewhere around there, 1,600 yards. I don't know exact figures on that, but yeah, they put up some good numbers.
That was a relatively quick turnaround in that school, wasn't it? Were they 0-9 or 1-8 as of recently? Or,
they've had some struggling years, but they've been one of those teams that actually Jack Arnett's grandpa Rollin Arnett kind of led them through the playoffs 6 years.
Right.
They were and then they had a few down years, but they were like 4 and 5, 5 and 4 type teams, and then they've made the playoffs recently. But they made a big step up last year, obviously.
Well, we're going to make the first pitch for our kickoff section, which publishes in the Thursday, August 23rd section, and is rolling out online when, Wes?
I don't know. Probably Wednesday night.
Yeah,
I think
probably tomorrow, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And among the various things in here, we have a little trend on each of the Metro football teams. And to answer your question, yes, I mean, the last 5 years, Princeville has gone from 3 wins to 7 to 5 to 4 to 6.
You see a step up this year then?
Stepping up.
Yeah, they saw it last year. They got beat pretty good.
Not 6, but 9 last year.
They got beat pretty good by Forreston last year, 42-0, I think it was. And they saw how strong Forreston was, and the big emphasis over the summer has been hitting that weight room and getting bigger and stronger and faster and those kind of things. And so he's even been telling me, has Forreston been lifting more than you today? You know, he's kind of used that as a motivator to get them to say, hey, are you lifting? You know, are you getting stronger than those guys in Forreston? And you know, so they know what it takes to get to that level. So we'll see if they can get there.
That's the kind of commitment it takes, because one thing that you can count on, college and high school, is that over the off season, the guys that are coming back are always going to get bigger, stronger, faster, and better, unless they're lazy.
Right.
And programs like Forreston are the situations where it almost becomes, it's such a culture thing, especially at the high school level. Even a lot more so in high school than necessarily even as in college or definitely the pros. But there's a culture, a weight room culture, and that's why having coaching consistency is so important. The teams you see struggling are the ones who seem to have a new coach every year or two, and the ones that tend to have succeed are the ones who have coaches for 8 or 9, 10 years, and that's because they build a culture.
Yeah. So, Aaron, on the big school front, Dunlap went to the semifinals last year. They've got a lot of guys back. They've lost a couple of super studs, but they've got a lot of guys back. Can they get back to the championship game this year? And who else is a threat to make it that far among the big schools?
I think Dunlap has the ability to. The past few years, or I should say every time I've talked with Coach Caslett, he says we want to be peaking come week 9, come week 10, when they get into the playoffs. If you remember 2 years ago, they had some personnel issues, and then they got some players back that were hurt, some other players back from school-related stuff, and then they needed to win out to get to 5-4 to make the playoffs. Did, and then they lost to Peoria High 21-9 in a game that was a dogfight until the fourth quarter. I mean, it was and
that was against a Peoria High team that scored about 121 points every game.
And won state.
Yeah, I think they won their quarterfinal by like 40.
It was like 96-56,
So
I think.
Holding that team to 21 and losing by 12 was a hell of an accomplishment.
Right, and they've done that for the past couple of years. I mean, they were peaking towards the end of last season too, and really they were in that game until the fourth quarter against Phillips, despite having their starting quarterback Miles Burke go down on the first possession, where they drove right down on that Phillips defense to the red zone, and they've got that same quarterback coming back, Miles Burke. He looks a lot stronger. Not much taller. He's still a little short, but he's got some dudes he can throw it to, including Josiah Miaman, who
he looks like he's a beast.
He might be the best player in the area, just flat out. He is an athletic freak. He's being recruited by Penn State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin. So the high-profile schools in the Midwest to go play tight end or D end. And he's going to play both ways, and he's been very good both ways in the past. And
it's an interesting combination, wide receiver and defensive end.
Right, because he's 6'4", 220, so he's got speed and he's got power. I mean, he's just very unique. But they've got receivers behind him, a 6'5" Andrew Pogue, Derek Passmore, who's more of a little slot guy. I think he's maybe 5'6", 5'7". And they've got receivers beyond that. People are probably more concerned with them losing a Charlie Mangieri type and a Luke Benioff type, who obviously are going to be missed a lot. But they've got dudes returning at the line at the linebacker position and the secondary on defense. They've got guys back pretty much everywhere. I think one concern for them's offensive line, but running back, they're going to rotate a few guys in. I think junior Isaiah Curry, he looks pretty raw skill-wise just from the practice I went to, but 5'11", 175, he looked pretty toned. I mean, he was pretty impressive just watching him go through drills. So he might win out towards the end of the year, but I think they've got pieces that could definitely make a run. And I think Teague Dentino, what he did with the defense last year, you can – if you can stop the other team's offense, you've got a pretty good shot at winning football games. And so they're having the offense back. I think defense is going to be the biggest thing to watch as they progress throughout the year.
By the way, I think Ferguson's been sandbagging. He came in here a couple minutes before we started recording and said, I am not prepared for this. I don't know what I'm going to say. And now he's rattling all this stuff off the top of his head.
Well, the thing about Dunlap, too, I think with Brett Caslett as coach, I mean, he came from Fieldcrest a decade ago and it was all about offense seemingly there. And coming in, I covered him when he first started at Dunlap, and he struggled a little bit to find sort of like his identity, I guess, the identity of that school, and obviously getting some athletes like he's had over the last handful of years help.
Well, the Mangieri family helps.
Yeah, it really did. And then, but what I really like, Dentino seemed to solidify it. I mean, he's a guy I covered too. He was a guy I named our POI back in 2006, I think. I was 12 years ago. Oh gosh, I'm old. That. I mean, I think that gets sort of lost with Caslett and sort of the flashy offense and things like that. Last year, defense was really, really impressive. And when you can unleash athletes like they have on defense, you can be in any game. I mean, that might cause you to maybe be a little bit more conservative on offense, but I think that's for the good if you have a defense as attacking as that style. And, yeah, just putting a lot of good things together there.
And some rival coaches even said that Teague Dentino and then even Todd Stevens at Washington, who are both defensive coordinators, are two of the best in-game coordinators because they make adjustments on the fly and can see those types of things.
Well, that's what in high school it's so tough because, I mean, there's the bigger schools and the bigger programs draw such talent to the coaching staffs. I mean, you look at Metamora over the handful of years, they've had. Back in their run when they won a couple of state titles in 2007, 2009, they had two coordinators, you could argue, Nick Zielinski and Jared Grebner, who could have been high-profile head coaches at other schools. And I think those big programs draw guys like Todd Stevens and Dentino, and like they're from those communities, or they're teaching, or Dentino feels like he's on his way up, like he's not necessarily from Dunlap, but it's just interesting how the just talent begets talent, and programs just can sort of pile on the talent not only on the field but on the sidelines too.
We'll get to a couple of coordinators at other schools here in a minute because there have been some shakeups. But Aaron, from what we've talked about in the office and other things I've heard, despite what we've just said about Dunlap, that's team is not going to be the favorite to win the Middle Illini.
No, not at all. I mean, Washington,
which might not keep them from getting to the state championship game again, but they're not necessarily going to be the best team in the Middle Illini.
Washington's got so much returning, I think, and everybody knows it. That's the thing. Yeah. Going around to practices, everyone's like, well, Washington's got, Caleb Fisher back. They've got Sam Walter back, Will Crouch, J.J. Gaudet, Minnesota offensive line recruit. They've just got so much back. I mean, dudes that started that Peoria High game, the Peoria High quarterfinal game when Peoria High went on to the state championship. Right? Yeah. I mean, this is going to be their third year starting. So they've got probably 6 to 8 guys that have started at some point in their sophomore year. They've got a real good junior class that's going to be pushing those guys for playing time. I mean, it's hard not to like Washington's chances just because of all the talent and all the experience that they have. But then maybe this is just personal preference, but when they started running the football a lot towards the back half of last year, they were utilizing their strengths, but they were also eliminating the passing game as they were going along. And I think that hurt them at times because they weren't necessarily getting the reps in practice, and they weren't necessarily getting the looks in the game because they didn't need to.
Right.
So then when it came time, when they're falling behind a Dunlap and maybe need a little more sense of urgency, they're going on a 9-minute drive and then can't get into the end zone. And then next thing you know, there's like 4 minutes left and they're down by 3 scores. And so.
Yeah, Daryl Crouch, who's like 13 seasons now, something like that there.
And it's been very successful.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've always liked about his coaching style is there are certain coaches where, well, that guy's going to run or that guy's going to pass, and Daryl doesn't fit square pegs in round holes, so he finds what's best.
Right.
He has a sort of college coaching style where he'll sort of just adapt to what needs to be depending on his talent. And having a third-year starting quarterback, you got to think they're going to be able to mix in the pass a little more.
Which I think
just because Daryl's offense can be sometimes going to be so overwhelming to new guys. But someone like Caleb Fisher, who's I think he's the third brother to start for 3 years, a quarterback at least at that school. He knows the offense, so I don't think Daryl feels bad. I mean, I think he trusts Caleb to pretty much make any call and do some audibles. I know Austin and then who was the middle guy? Isaac. Those guys by their third year had the wristband and they were making calls on their own. So it's a situation where it's all about the quarterback with Daryl's offense as to how comfortable they can get.
And I think we might see them open it up too as situations dictate. I think they're going to be maybe, I don't want to say quicker to get away from that power running game that they showed. But then again, last year they went to that because they've got Josh Schellenberg, who can run. Sam Walter, who might be the fastest kid, one of the fastest kids in the area for sure. Brendan Durr, a fullback who, according to Coach Crouch, runs a 4.59 40. That's not your typical fullback. And then Caleb Fisher, who ran for close to 1,000 yards himself. So, I mean, the offense definitely fit the pieces they had last year.
Does Gaudet play offense? Is he a
offensive line
tackle? That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's two-way lineman, isn't he?
Yeah.
Both
Oh
ways.
gosh,
Yeah.
I think we even listed at 6'8", 285.
Yeah.
He'll probably be 6'9", 290 by the time the tab comes out.
He
so.
He was what, 250 in March when I saw him at a basketball game.
And I live in Washington, so I think I see him from my house when I wake up. But yeah, he's huge.
Just gets bigger.
Yeah.
See the next Washington candidate for the Bachelorette.
Well, I asked him that. Remember that, Matt? I asked him that. He's like, that's not my style.
I didn't think it was Colton's style either, to be honest. But he's having fun with it. He's making a lot of money for his charity, so
which is awesome.
That's what he wants. Yep.
That's perfect. So, a school, another big school that is in a little transition, that's been there. We talked about a moment ago. Peoria High won the state championship 2 years ago. Got beat in the first round last year. Has overhauled. Coron Taylor, the quarterback, is off to Illinois. Geno Hess, the second leading rusher in area history, is off to, where did he go?
SEMO.
To SEMO. So they've lost some significant
And
players.
Marcus Cox went to Northern Illinois, offensive tackle.
And we talked about the offensive coordinator. They've got a new defensive coordinator at Peoria High, and a new quarterback in Young Hernandez, whose brother was the quarterback before Coron Taylor, right? So
those pictures were awesome, by the way. Shout out to Ron Johnson.
Giving the little boy the noogie. But what's going on? What's going on there? I mean, Tim Thornton has run a certain style. Are we going to see major changes in this style now, or just little tweaks to it?
You're going to see major changes defensively.
Let's start there. How so?
They told me that back in February at signing day. They said our defense is going to look different, and I was like, okay. So I've had plenty of time to think of it. This has been 6 months now, where I've just kind of been figuring out what they might do, because they said it's going to go with their fast, hard finish FHF mantra, which is why they do the tempo. It's why they do the pooched onside kicks and the onside kicks, and why they are what they are on special teams. And I think they haven't told this to me, but I think you're going to see exactly what Phillips did in the state championship game. They're just going to line 7 dudes up, put their corners on an island. Maybe they'll have safeties. I don't know. I don't know exactly what they'll do, but I think they're going to line dudes up, and you're not going to know who's coming. It could be different every play.
Thornton's been doing that. I remember when he took over at Woodruff, it's such a different idea of what, at the time, he was so ahead of his time, it felt like, at the high school level, because he was taking guys who were running backs or tight ends or even guys who were running back size or receiver size and putting them at defensive line, and basically just had them shoot gaps and just be athletes.
Disrupt.
Metamora has done that for a while too, to a certain degree, especially at nose guard. But it's just an interesting idea of sort of just yeah, they might not tackle you when they get to you, but they're going to make you make a decision and change where you're going and change direction and just flow to the ball. I mean, he had some really fun Woodruff teams back in the late. And I feel like they might be passing a little more this year.
They definitely will.
Yeah,
definitely will.
Which they did under Mitch Hidden back in. That was probably one of the best quarterbacks that Thornton's coached, or I should say, past pocket quarterbacks he's coached. I mean, Taylor, of course, is great. But
yeah, I don't know if you'll see the long bombs that Karan would unleash on teams, but the thing they like about Gabe, if you read the story in, what was it, Monday's paper?
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, if you read the story on Gabe and his brother and Karan on Monday's paper, they really like the mental side that Gabe brings, just his approach to the game, the film work, the way he talks about defenses and reads them. And he's not going to be the Orlando Hernandez that is running around like Johnny Manziel in the backfield evading pressure. And he's not going to be the Karan Taylor that's going to be overpowering the linebackers when running downhill or unleashing that big cannon. But he's going to make the smart throws. He's going to throw in between spots before receivers are there, before corners or linebackers know where the ball's going.
And it sounds like they got some depth at a receiver.
Yeah, Kavion Mack and Chris Williams are the two names, especially the two guys that are coming back. But Tim Thornton really likes his receivers. You'll probably see a lot of 4 wide receiver sets who throw running back out of the backfield or maybe pull a wide receiver into the backfield at times. I think it's going to look a lot different because they ran the ball so much, and you're going to when you have speed with Geno Hess and the power that Jalen James had and Fred Dixon had, but it's going to look a lot different, I think, in a sense that they will throw the football more, but you may see screen passes too.
Oh, he loved his screens back with Justin Chappie and Mitch Hidden and those guys. He loved to throw those screen passes. And similarly to what we talked about with Darryl and the Fisher boys, like Thornton was able to put a lot on Hidden and put a lot on guys, his quarterback. So if he has a guy like Hernandez who he feels like he trusts with his offense, he can just do so much more because Thornton has that college background, similar to Crouch, that he likes to play different styles. He can play different styles depending on what his talent is.
So Stan, on the small school side, anybody got a similar type of overhaul or a little shake-up in the way that they're going to play as opposed to what we've seen in the past?
I don't know really a major shakeup, but I know in talking with Toby Vallis and Farmington, their quarterback, Hayden Brott, this year's a senior. Last year he was coming from, they had Dylan Hayden who threw for more yards and more touchdowns than anybody ever has in our area. And so they were kind of trying to fit him into kind of that scheme. But this year they kind of sat down with each other and they said, okay, what do you do well? And they actually kind of revamping what they're going to do offensively, kind of tailored around what Hayden Brott can do and what he can do well. I mean, he still threw for 2,000 yards last year and ran for over 700. He's kind of like a running back, quarterback, but he's developed more as a passer. And had a really good summer this past year throwing the ball too. So they're going to tailor some things a little bit differently but they still run the spread. There's still going to be a lot of options. They had senior receivers last year. This year they're going to have some younger, talented kids that haven't really seen a lot of experience. So that's going to be kind of a different shift for Hayden to see. But
and Farmington's a program that's had pretty much. Have become a playoff perennial. Is that they got a good shot at keeping that?
They
going?
really have. I think they really do. Yeah, I mean they're back-to-back unbeaten regular seasons. They did lose. They lost a lot of those 3-year starter kind of guys, really impact players. But they have, they still have some quality on the line. They've got some. Obviously, when you have somebody like Jared DePriest on that line and on each side of the line, you're talking a 6'5", 290. You talk about size.
Terrorize opponents.
Yeah, size of school too.
That's 2A, 3A.
Yeah,
they're 2A. Yeah, borderline. Sometimes,
3A? Yeah.
well, they've been 3A lately.
Yeah.
They can slip in, but it seems like they're 3A.
3A
yes,
Yeah, and he's the guy that's getting a lot of offers here. He's getting D1 type MAC schools. Missouri Valley schools. You know, North Dakota State was one of those schools. So he's kind of, you know, weighing options and that kind of thing, hoping for bigger things. You know, but I mean, he's had interest. I mean, Illinois showing some interest, and Indiana showing interest. He's worked out for those in Iowa, and he's worked out for Notre Dame. Some programs like that. Yeah, for a 2A, 3A school,
size, right?
6'5", 290.
Can move a little bit
on both sides of the ball. He can make a big difference in that. Yeah, so certainly they're going to keep. I think they can keep going. Maybe not an unbeaten season, 3 in a row. I don't know, you never know.
Also, among the small schools, I mean, is there anything we ought to look at in terms of, you know, is there been a big change any place in terms of a coach or assistant coach, coordinator type, or the style that somebody's going to play?
Not really. I mean, we've gotten only a couple. 2 different coaches in the area, none of those involving metro area. We had several, but we have a new coach at River Valley, and both of these new coaches have kind of area ties too. I mean, Michael Petrovics, right?
That's right, yes.
Get that name out. He played for Metamora, played on our 2007 state championship team. He's taken over at River Valley.
Speaking of feeling old.
Just wait, my friend.
So, you know, it takes over a program that's really obviously struggled the last several years. And
River Valley, for those who don't know, it's a co-op.
Co-op with Henry and Low Point, Washburn, and Midland as well. Yeah, three different schools there, and they've struggled with just getting numbers and getting kids out. But he's excited about the way things are looking for them, and we'll see what kind of changes happen with that school. And the only other coaching change is Olympia has Eric Lyons now, who used to be at Morton. He coached for Morton for 2013, 14, and 15. He was on Bloomington staff last few years, but so that's Olympia has been struggling as well. Another program that's, you know, they have had back-to-back winless seasons, and so he's going to take over a program that hopefully get them going back in the right direction, because they have been a program that has had success in the past. We'll see what happens with that. So those are the 2 new coaches that we have in the area. But I think you're going to see mostly about the same, you know, when it comes to small schools. Elmwood Brimfield's still going to be Elmwood Brimfield. Still going to play that scrum offense where everybody's together, and they're going to run the ball constantly. They got a stable of backs again this year, 2-year starting quarterback in Charlie McKenty, and so they're not going to do anything really different. Tremont under Zach Zier, second year there. He's got some young kids that are played last year that they're a year older now.
And you're going to see them Friday night, week 1
against DMAC.
And their new facility.
That'll be exciting. Yeah, talk about something new. Yeah, that's probably when you talk about something new on big school or small schools. DMAC's turf field and about $6 million project that they have, eight lane track. It looks beautiful. I mean, you see videos and see pictures.
Small schools are going to.
No, but you know, more and more small schools are actually getting turf fields. El Paso Gridley has one too.
Yeah, I haven't in a while.
And actually, I think Farmington is talking about the possibilities of doing something like that too. And so, with the kind of monies that they can get now, but yeah, this is. I mean, you talk about going from DMAC facilities were really rough. I mean, 1A.
Ramshackle.
Yeah. And then now they're going to that's beautiful.
And even El Paso was kind of interesting because they did the field, but they really didn't do much else with the rest of the facility. It was kind of interesting how the bleachers were still kind of small, and it was just really cool, just surface out in the middle of cornfields. But I think as time goes on, Dunlap's had turf for a while. Yeah. Washington's had turf for a while now. I think some schools are probably holding out, just saying like maybe the more conservative school districts might be like, okay, is it really worth the cost? Like, the upfront costs for the long-term save. Right. And then now I think the more distance goes between these schools who have it and they see how much money they're saving. I assume they are, or they wouldn't be doing it, right?
Well,
no corruption.
So many things that you can do on that field, and you don't know upkeep and anything like that for like 15 years. I think it is.
People assume just football. There's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, the band competitions and soccer games and things like that. Because it isn't just a football field. Yes.
Right.
It isn't just a football field. Football fans. It's all purpose.
Well, and the turf fields today, it was interesting because you had people race to get the artificial turf back when it was like running on concrete.
Yeah.
And it faded and it tore up, and it was like, wow. And then they have to replace it, and that cost as much as if you'd have been watering it, mowing it, and tailoring it year to year. This next generation of artificial turf it's a different deal. I mean, it's nice and soft to walk on, and it appears
like grass,
appears to be holding up. Appears to be holding up better. We'll see. Maybe we'll have to get a horticulturist or a lawn expert to come in and explain someday. It could be interesting. I know there's still debate out there over that whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. That's the thing. I mean, it's the guys who sell the fields obviously can come in and say everything they want to say to get a school district to buy it. But when it comes down to it, does it last? And it's just a matter of time before we find out.
Yeah. So, Aaron, back to the bigs. Let's stay in the city. Richwoods last year put together a return to the playoffs and made the quarterfinals, correct?
Yep.
And now have to reconstruct because did they not lose everybody from their offense?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Roland Brown. Let's face it. I mean, one of the keys to their success last year was that, and it had been coming a little bit by little bit in that program, but what you saw out of Richwoods' offense last year did not in any way, shape, or form resemble what people saw out of Richwoods' offense from the 50s up until about 5 years ago. I mean, they aired it out a little bit. More than a little bit.
Yeah. Right. Well, they might have just been putting on a show for me at practice to disguise what they're going to do, but it looked like they're going to do the same thing as last year. But yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of guys to replace. I think Jalen Russell's going to step in at quarterback to take over for Keenan Streetmatter. They've got to replace a 2,000-yard back and to Knowledge Hall with Jamin Moore is going to handle those responsibilities. But I think they like their receivers too, which is a good sign if they're going to be throwing the football and running that quote-unquote spread offense, I guess. I guess it is a spread offense. There shouldn't be quotes. But, I mean, they are pretty spread out.
A hesitatingly spread offense.
It's because you're talking about Richwoods. That's why it's like maybe you don't like.
Are we really in a spread? No belly dives?
But they've got some guys at receiver. I mean, Nate Wilburn's a speedy receiver that can get the ball and go. Maybe throw him in the slot and stretch the defense a little bit. Joe Jackson, who's getting some Division I looks. He's been going to camps all summer. He was pretty good at it. He started at linebacker and then moved back to safety. It was a big part of their defense last year. I guess he's been flipping over and playing some receiver with Joe Burns even. So I think Coach Brown likes his receivers, and I think they've got a shot to do some things offensively, but they're going to be leaning on their defense early in the year. So it's kind of like the reverse opposite of last year. Last year they were leaning on their offense, and their defense came together, which allowed them to make a quarterfinal run.
And Notre Dame.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Wing T. All the same coaches are still there.
Yeah.
All the same coaches. Pat Armstrong, Sean Gillen. Sean Gillen resigned. Pat Armstrong took over. But Sean Gillen stayed on on the staff. And he looked really excited to be there. He looked happy. He looked, he's jumping into drills and telling guys to do, I don't know, football stuff. Well, whatever it is he was trying to correct.
He's not telling him to do swimming stuff.
Well, but I mean, it's the same core. And you mentioned the consistency and the stability. They're, I guess, seeking an 8th straight playoff berth.
Right.
and they think they've got a good shot to do it. They think they have a lot of speed. The line's coming together. I mean, they really like their chances to make the playoffs. Now, for them, it's getting over that hump of winning a first-round playoff game. But they emphasize they got to get there. Every time they went back to week one, they're like, we got Normal West. That's what we care about most.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's, I think, I mean, I'm not singling out Notre Dame necessarily but I think seems to be a theme among teams that have success in the playoffs is the ability to adjust to the talent that you have and basically go with what's best. I mean, a guy like Roland Brown's been coaching for three decades, and that school was all about belly option under Peeler and Butler and Semper, and it's like Brown's like, they just don't have the athletes to do that anymore. So we're not jamming square pegs in round holes. And
credit to him for changing
completely. I think the game is, I mean, not only that, it's not only just
kids don't want to play belly option anymore.
That's exactly right. And Thornton has figured that out. He's like, if you make football fun, then kids want to come play it. So that's what you do.
Right.
And obviously, it's always a bonus when you win. So that's helpful.
Winning's nice. So
Richwoods had that nice little surprising run. They had a rough start to their season, but then they made a nice push to the second round game with Morton, right? The quarterfinal.
They beat Morton.
They beat Morton.
Shut Morton out in the second half. So that's been a big talking point at Morton, by the way.
Well, and that's the thing about Richwoods, though. You do that, and now, like, maybe some of those kids who will walk in the halls who didn't want to come out to Richwoods football practice now might go, okay, they made the quarterfinals, so let's go.
Yeah. You can change in a hurry with that. And mentioned changes up in coordinators a while ago. A familiar name returns to Limestone as offensive coordinator, Lauren Peacock.
Restaurateur, Lauren Peacock.
Hey, former coach of the indoor Peoria Pirates.
Robert Moore's coach.
That's right, Robert Moore's coach.
Certainly a knowledgeable and good football man. I mean,
yes,
what would you expect different from the Rockets this year?
I think it's another team that's going to throw the ball a little more.
Yeah.
They got a quarterback in Blake Fengle that they entrust to throw it. They've got some receivers that can go get the ball. I think they're going to be pro style. They're not going to be spread per se, but they've got some dudes that they like. Gerald Cummings at running back. They think he has the ability to be a good feature back, but really Coach Driscoll emphasized it's going to be all on their line to kind of
that's where they've struggled. It seems like over the past, since they've had they've had some success off and on there over the course, but it seems like when they're good is when they can find some guys up front. So,
and I think the one noticeable difference from when I went to practice last year to when I went to practice this year was those kids were flying around. They were energetic. They were loud. Whereas last year they were just, here we are in the hot sun.
Because that's one thing about Limestone. I saw Driscoll's in his 7th season now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's he was one of the few that had been there for more than a half decade or so and hadn't had the success recently. So I feel like maybe they're at a point where this is a turning point for them. Maybe a new chapter with a returning quarterback and a new getting Lauren back in there.
And I think he's excited too.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So as we start to wrap this up, each of you guys, Aaron and Stan, we'll start with Stan. Give me your pick as the most likely team that you cover to go deep, to go the deepest by the end of the year, have the best season, and a team to watch for a surprise. Who'd be your biggest dark horse candidate, somebody to watch?
All right. Yeah, my pick to go the deepest would be Princeville, as stated before, with all that they have returning. And in 1A, they always hit those northern schools. That when you get to that quarterfinal round and the semifinals, you're playing the traditional powerhouses of, the Lee Winds and the Forestons and all of those. But they would be it's really tough for the Farmingtons and Elmwood Brimfields to go through 3A. Farmington made a good run a couple of years ago, getting through the quarterfinals also. So, so I'd say, Princeville would be one.
And your surprise.
As far as a surprise, man, that's tough because, last year we had a couple of the area schools make surprising turnarounds from 1 and 8s to playoff. Abingdon, Avon went and made a big turnaround. North Fulton was one of those that made a big turnaround. So there's going to be a team or two that are going to do that this year. It's just finding.
Got to wait a couple weeks and see who starts catching the flyer.
You know, IVC is one that played a lot of sophomores and juniors, but they are in a really tough schedule. Yeah. They start out with Tolono, Unity, and Monticello, which are the two toughest teams in that conference there. So that's tough for them to kind of make it through there. Tremont is on the small side of the HOI, which they can maybe do some. Kind of curious to see what they do.
Well, their coach, I think,
this year.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Zara was a former assistant at DMAC, or played at DMAC, assistant at Dunlap.
Right.
Went to Tuscola and made a title game. Won a title?
Won a title.
Won a title.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of time before Tremont's back. I don't know if it's right now, but you never know.
And again,
it takes
they're
one
like
time.
IBC. They played some young kids, and they're gaining that experience, and you never know. You know, especially you never know what those JV kids are going to do when they finally get into Friday Night Lights, and maybe their time to shine, and you see a team that's 2-7 like Tremont.
Part of the fun of it.
Change to 7-2. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, it's part of the fun of it.
Especially in small school football.
Yeah. And Aaron?
Well, I've got to go with Washington.
Yeah.
Just because of the experience. I mean, the experience and the coaching there is just unbelievable coming back this year. Over the past, 3 or 4 years?
30 and 7.
With 2 semifinal appearances. I mean, that's when I took a step back to actually realize what that meant. I was like, wow, that's pretty darn good. And they've got all these dudes coming back. I think Dunlap is a sleeper in a sense that I don't think a lot of people realize what they have coming back in a general sense. Because you lose the big names like Charlie Mangieri and Luke Benioff. Same with Peoria High. You lose Karan Taylor, who's at Illinois competing for a starting job, and Marcus Cox and Geno Hess. So I think those guys are sleepers, but because I've talked about them a lot, I'll go with Morton and Metamora.
Okay.
Because Morton still has 2 of their top 3 rushers back, and Nolan Donald and Jarrett Kreider. I think they're going to do a little bit, maybe try to pass a little bit more than they did, but they're just going to stick to their bread and butter. By the way, let's see how their turf holds up, because those 2 dudes are fast. And then I think Metamora thinks they have some things figured out defensively, which was really their Achilles heel. I don't anticipate them starting 0-4 like they did last year.
I don't think so either.
And they've got a Division I quarterback in Thomas Hall, who is listed at 6'7" on the football roster. He's 6'8" or 6'9" on the basketball roster. But he's tall, and he's got a good arm.
And reading between the lines of some of Pat Ryan's comments, it sounds like they might throw a little bit more than
another team that has great receiver depth. I don't think any schools I think my group of 12 schools have more receiver depth than any schools in the rest of the state. I've heard that line a lot.
All right. Well, that wraps that up. Aaron, you're going to be where on Friday night?
Richwoods Normal Community.
Richwoods Normal Community. Stan's going to be at that Tremont DMAC.
Jim McDonald Field.
9 rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Be a lot, and we will have reporters at quite a few of the other games, and where we don't have reporters, we'll be getting reports. So watch the pjstar.com as the night progresses for the scores and the updates and the final scores, and then the reports and the Saturday morning Journal Star for that. And before that, get a look at the entire area in the metro area, all the schools, school by school, in the kickoff 2018 edition that comes out in the paper on Thursday. And that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Journal Star Sportswriters. For Aaron Ferguson, Stan Morris, and Wes Hewitt, I'm Kirk Wessler. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.